Today we're going to talk about the Rolling Stones. So come on in. Welcome back to the channel. For those who have not been here before, we're talking about classic rock for mostly for people who either are going to react to it for the first time on YouTube or just listen to it at home or watch videos of it at home, and you're just not that familiar with classic rock. And so before we get into it, please like and subscribe. It's painless, it's easy, it's quick. You could have already done it by the time I finished this sentence. Okay, the Rolling Stones, they were a rock, pop, and blues band. They were mostly influenced by the blues and obviously 50s music because they were a 60s band. The Rolling Stones were Mick Jagger on vocals. Mick Jagger's an interesting guy. I mean, his dad was a gymnast and he was a gymnast in school. So, you know, and it's very evident when you watch them on stage. Maybe not now if you were to see him, I mean, because he's in his 80s, I think. But definitely up and through the 80s and even in their huge concerts in the 90s, this man was jumping around and doing stuff that others just couldn't do. Keith Richards on guitar, one of the most joked about men in rock and roll. And he's not that much older than most other people still playing rock and roll, but he just looks it, and we know he did so much substance that, you know, it aged him a bit. So several changes through the band's years, but Brian Jones unfortunately died in 1969, multi-instrumentalist. Charlie Watts playing drums, Ronnie Wood and Bill Wyman both took up the bass at different times in the band's career. They were formed in 1962, like I said, part of the British invasion, more of a gritty roots style defined rock. And from 1969, they were introduced on stage as the greatest rock and roll band in the world. Yeah, from my view, maybe not quite, but they were close. I mean, at the time, they were at the top of their game, and they were putting out very radio friendly, but still hard rocking songs. Although I definitely would not have categorized them as hard rock. So they were popular. They had estimated record sales of more than 250 million. Like I said, whereas the Beatles were fun and innocent looking guys to the older generations, the Stones were more threatening, kind of look rough around the edges and subversive looking, you know, kind of they were the kinds of guys that the older people were scared of. The first several albums were kind of inconsistent as far as UK and US versions. The songs that they released in the UK might not appear on a US version for a couple of albums. So, and the first 3 or 4 albums were mostly covers. They weren't really writing their own music at the beginning. But, you know, it's not that they didn't learn, because they have, up until 2023, they have 24 studio albums. But instead of going through their albums like I normally do and just coming up with the hits or the ones that are are reactable, let's just give a list of the hits, more or less in order of release. I Can't Get No Satisfaction. This is an extremely popular song. Get Off My Cloud, Paint It Black, Ruby Tuesday. I think that's more of a hidden gem now, but it wasn't back then. I haven't seen a lot of people react to it. In fact, I should stop now and say, you know, I'm not seeing a lot of people react to the Stones anyway, and which kind of is disturbing because of their, like I said, they sold 250 million albums. This is not a obscure band by any means. But, you know, we'll get back to the list. Let's Spend the Night Together. Jumpin' Jack Flash, very, very popular song, also covered by many bands. Honky Tonk Women, Sympathy for the Devil. And this is, Sympathy for the Devil is an unusual song in that when they played it at Altamont, which was kind of an answer to Woodstock, held in California, they had security with the Hells Angels, and there was an altercation near the stage, and the Hells Angels actually killed somebody during this song. And so they didn't play it anymore at concerts for years. I can't say, I'll look into it, but I can't say if they ever really started playing it again, which I thought was just kind of silly. It's kind of a superstition thing, but you know, it is what it is, or was what it was. Also, Street Fighting Man, Let It Bleed, You Can't Always Get What You Want, Gimme Shelter, It's Only Rock and Roll, Brown Sugar, Wild Horses, Tumbling Dice, Angie, Miss You, Beast of Burden, and Start Me Up. I mean, like I said, they sell so many albums, are more hits, but these are the most reactable ones and more popular songs that you know, especially for your reactor, certain part of your audience is going to be people who already know these bands like me, and they're looking for songs that we know, so we can see your reaction to it. They appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, just like the Beatles and Elvis had before them, and they appeared both in 1964 and 65. So if you can get away with reacting to that and putting it on the air, I had trouble trying to use anything from the Ed Sullivan Show, but maybe you'll have better luck. They had plenty of TV appearances, so as far as finding recordings of them live, it's not going to be hard. They had huge festival concerts, especially in the 70s and 80s and even into the 90s. So some of their stuff is, you know, against some of my past recommendations are just as good as listening to the studio versions. But I mentioned Elvis a minute ago, and if you like and subscribe, you'll get to see me talk about Elvis next time, because he's next on the list. Like and subscribe, and then until then, let the good times roll.